morning, buddy. I'm a little bored. I got another belt to do. Already completed one. Over here. All one go, and then I put a extra 2 stitch lines down here, or 2 passes down here, just to strengthen that area a little bit. But this is going to be colored after the stitching. That's why I use black. I did that on purpose just because well, the needle likes to tear at the backside just a little bit, and it leaves a little tiny bit of the flesh color sticking out of the hole. So if I stitch it ahead, if I can, if I'm planning on using a black thread, that's what I like to do, because then I get to color in those holes a little bit too. But some Q&A I got. I'm bored, so why not? First thing I'm going to do when I'm getting ready, I have to do a whole nother belt. I've already done the my lines next to my holes, but I still have to do the whole outside to prep the blank. I like to put the grooves in to get it down below the top so it doesn't wear out as quickly. I do it on the back side too. See, there's this is the front and this is the back. Those are even to each other. So it means your bobbin, you need to make sure is full. So what I like to do is, I know the bobbin in here should be pretty low because I used it to stitch the other belt. So I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to make sure that it is as full as I can get it, because you never know what I'm going to run into. I like to use these to pull the bobbin out. They're just little dental clamps of some sort. You can stick them right into those holes and pick it right up there, and then you can put it right back in the same way, one-handed. Magnets work too. A lot of people use those. This is just what I happen to have here. But so I did that whole belt. That belt is 43 inches long, so I did it 2 directions. And this bobbin was completely full. That is how much I have left of it. Almost none. About 8 inches. So that was done. But I already have another one preloaded. Now the quick way to get these loaded into your hook carrier, I like to take the thread after I get it in there, and I give it a little tug, and it pulls it down underneath the rest of them. That way it can hang and not come out while I'm trying to get it ready to go into the carrier. This tip is a little frayed, so I'm going to chop it off. Now this is a 137 thread. 138 thread. You got your holes. And you got your spring in there. I have modified this spring. That's about the only active modification on this machine that I have, is just that little spring. I pulled it out, I polished the back side of it, and I got rid of any sharp edges. And then I bent the tip of it out just a little bit, because most people with using 138 thread, they don't even put the thread underneath the spring to go through. But I have a little bit of an OCD problem, and I couldn't live with that. So I took that spring, I bent it out a little bit, and I go from the farthest hole to the farthest hole underneath the spring. And there's almost no tension given to it. It's pretty light. So, quick and easy way to get this loaded into there. You got just a couple of inches. Get it at an angle, get it through that first hole. And if you have it pulled through the other threads, you can just let it hang like that so you can get a grip on it. And then I grab this, and most of the springs, not all, I've seen a few that don't have it, there is a tiny little bit of the tip is bent up. Then you drag it downwards around it and loop. The thread goes underneath that spring, no problem. Then once you got to that point, then the spring is holding the bobbin for you too. Just grab it, pull it down, up through the hole, and now the string is through the the bobbin correctly underneath the spring and everything. And then I take my thumb, I put it over the spring on the hole, and to get it jerked loose out of those threads, I pull out about 4 or 5 inches. Make sure it's not stuck underneath other threads. And then I hand wheel it back up in a counterclockwise position. Then I drop it right in. From here, I like to give it a couple inches test, make sure it's loose, it's not stuck. Sometimes you'll get it actually pinched between the bobbin and the carrier. Then when you go to pull on it, it actually cuts it off. But at least you found it now before you've already done 100 stitches down the side of a belt. Because that's no bueno, that sucks. And so I always take my little clips, my clamp here, picks, drop it down in there. Most machines come from the factory now with a little cutout right here. If you don't have one, get something and grind a little cutout in there so you can lay that thread across there. Close your door, and then once it's in here, your handle's at the top. And this needs a little more. Let go of here, but I always grab the needle the thread coming out through the needle, just to hold on to it. I don't know why I do it. You don't really need to. Run it one time through, lock it back at the top, and give that a tug, nice and soft, and the bobbin thread comes up through your hole. That's really easy. It's not something that's too hard to figure out, but I've been running into people asking me what's the easy way to do that. That is actually the way to do it, and it is pretty easy once you figure it out. So I got these a little long. Let's cut them down just a little. Now this is my belt. I see a few people on there. This is my belt. I'm going to do this whole length. I think this one is 45 inches overall, so I'm going to be doing 90 inches of stitching. I'm going to start on this side. I'm going to do a 4-stitch back stitch and then continue down. I got channels cut in the top and on the bottom, and so I don't overdo it. I always kind of gauge where I need it to be, and then I'll take something and I'll poke a little dot right there so I have a goal to start on when I go to hit the leather with the needle for the first time. But the way I do it, when I'm using something long like this, I don't rotate my material, I rotate my head. So I'm going to start this thread out with the head backwards. On my head, I put this little mark right here. It's just a Sharpie, and I have a mark on the drum right here. When that is lined up in this direction, that is perfectly 180 degrees away from me. And if your control rod up here is perfectly flat, if they did a good job, or you happen to catch it and you flattened it out, you could turn this exactly 180 degrees, and I have another mark on the drum right here that lines up. That's another 180 degrees facing towards me. So I'm going to start out with it pointing away from me. I'm going to get this thing in here. I'm going to go down to that mark that I put on there. I'm going to put the needle up against it and then not go through it yet. I'm just going to kind of put the needle up against it, holding it down for me. Then I'm going to grab my 2 threads that I have loose, one on the bottom, one on the top, and I'm going to get them in line with the path facing towards me. I'm going to make sure there's no tension pulling on the needle, so the needle's not being bent towards me or away from me, or I'm sure you understand that. I'll put my foot down, not like I'm angry or anything. This foot, not the feet down there. I'm going to send it through one time. And I'm going to hold on to these threads for at least 3 stitches. It's just, you don't have to. Some people don't even touch them at all. There's 2, 3, 4. Now down here in like the 6:30, 7 o'clock position, there's a point in the cams where it kind of locks your drive shaft for you. You can let go of it right there and it's not going to go. It will bump easily and go ahead and rotate, but it'll hold pretty steady there. As long as you don't accidentally whack that, it'll stay. Right now, I have the foot lifted just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and turn it that 180 degrees facing towards me. And at this point, because This is how I like to do things. I'll give that a little tug, make sure it's nice and tight, and then I'll grab that bottom string and I'll pop it. That brings the top string through a little bit, creating a little loop back there. I'll grab a sharp object, I'll grab that loop, and I'll pull it through so both ends are hanging out the backside where nobody's going to see, and it's just going to be up against the pants of the person that's wearing it. Then I'll grab both those and I'll lock it in my fingers, and I'll get it locked on right here so these two tails stay tight as I start to head back this direction. My tension is off. Go up a little bit. If you have to do that, you can grab right here. Like if the stitch right behind it seems to be a little loose, before you plunge, you can grab it right here on the side of the needle and just give it a tiny bit of pull. But when you do that, that will also pull thread into the system a little bit further. Now you got to kind of compensate for that. So I grab up here in front of my tensioner, get that out of your way, on the back side of my tensioner, and I'll pull it back just a tiny bit. Then I'll check it, make sure it's not like, super tight. Can you still see that? Yeah, you can still see that. My hand will be in the way for a second, and then I'll continue. So now I'm to the hole, the last hole that these tails are going through. I will go one more, maybe two more to be comfortable, and then I can finally let go of those. Or at least I can feel comfortable letting go of those. And then you just kind of follow that line. Now a lot of guys, they will get into this groove where they have this, or they'll put a stop up here so that they can just go to town, like a little steam motor. But I like to take it a little bit slower. When I get up here into this top cam position, the needle is up, the foot is down. I like to take my index finger and touch the top of the machine, and I use that to kind of torque over into that cam and come down slightly slower right there, so I can make sure my needle is going to land where I want it. And then right about there, right where the needle starts to hit, I'll go ahead and send it down. I pretty much do that with every stitch. Now this is a long belt, so I'm going to be stitching for about 10 minutes. But I could go faster and get it over with sooner. But, it's slow and steady wins the race. Or, my dad used to say, go slow, get there faster. Because you're less likely to make any mistakes. I have made mistakes. I made a mistake earlier today on this other belt. I was going too fast, and I started lifting as it's coming through the machine. I got excited, and I would lift, and it would, the needle would plunge incorrectly, but the leather was then at a small angle because I was lifting, and it caused this side of this thread right here to come out of the groove on the back side. So you also have to be careful and stay straight. Don't lift on the leather any. Don't tip it. Don't force it, because that's the kind of stuff that ends up happening. Hi, Dad. Anybody that's been wondering about my, yes, slow, get there faster. Anybody that's been wondering about my other machine that I've been talking about, that sees this, I haven't touched it in a couple weeks. Been extremely busy at work, So it's still in the grinding phase and cleanup phase and deburring. It is still, yes, screwed so that the head here is what's actually holding it up and it's sticking up in the air. But eventually. Oh, today there was a guy that I don't know if how many of you saw the post. He's asking, can the machine do hats? I did 2 of these today. It can do hats. I've done about 10 hats over the last year and a half I've had this machine. But I don't do a lot of them, but it is very possible. So if that guy sees this, there you go. If any of you know how to get a hold of Manly Acres, I know he's in the group, but I haven't seen him in a while, and I can't remember what profile he used it under, or that he's on the group, so I can't find him. Get a hold of him and tell him to get a hold of the admins. I'd like to talk to him, and or let me know, and I'll get a hold of him. Sometimes your drum will move on its own. Those marks will help you identify that it's doing that. I suggest anybody that wants to see the end of this to fast forward through this once it's just a video on the group, because this could be very boring. not good. No? Oh well. Uh-oh, see? My foot slipped right there. I almost went right back into the same hole. So get your needle down close to the leather. Lift your foot. Get it where you want it. Don't try not to move it too far. Get it where you think it needs to be. Touch the leather with the needle. Put the foot back down and keep going. It just slipped again. What is going on? Alright, so I went a tiny bit past the halfway point. How long did that take me? 6, 8 minutes? Let's see if I can break that record. Going back the other way. I'm going to do another live video when I go to do a bike seat that will have, the topic will be based off of French seams. That was one I was going to do a couple of weeks ago, and I ended up not being able to do it. And so I have another project coming. There's a customer that wants a bike seat done. It's going to have tons of French seam on it, so I'm going to do the video when I do that. I do wish I could do this video, these things a lot sooner in the day. Maybe more people would actually watch. What do you think? You think I can get carpal tunnel from this? I know what you're thinking. You're dirty. Hey, did you guys see that machine the guy redid? It's all black and blue. I thought that was a pretty slick looking paint idea, paint scheme. Hey Daryl, if you watch this, do you guys shoot off fireworks at any point in your for your holidays, other than like New Year's? I don't know. Do you guys have something like 4th of July? Let me know. Tiny bit of a wiggle right here. That's not good. You never actually notice it. Alright. I'm going to do the back stitch on the ending side now. You guys saw me do it on the front side. Basically the exact same thing in reverse. So I'm going to get to my 6:30, 7 o'clock position so I can let go. The foot is lifted just a tiny bit. I'm going to rotate this to my other 180 degree marker. And then I'm going to go even slower. I'm going to support the strap on front and back down here. I'll just lift up a little bit back there. I'm going to go one stop at a time. I'm going to make sure that the needle, I'm going to try to make sure the needle doesn't pierce through the thread that's already going through the hole. But I'm going to slow down just a little bit. So I'm going to, as the needle comes down, I'm going to try to aim it so that it goes through the same hole, but it's off to the side of the thread that's already going through it. I don't know, sometimes you just cannot avoid it, but most of the time you can. I did 4 back stitches on this side. I'm going to do the same on this side. I've already done 2. There's 3. There's 4. Get it up there at that 12 o'clock position down here on the handle. Give yourself a little bit of slack. I like to just take my finger and grab the string that's going from the tensioner to the guide right here and pull it down to about the distance of the arm. Lift your foot. Make sure your needle's up. I'll say it probably 20 more times, and then I pull it off and nip it off. Now, for those of you that weren't watching in the beginning, I pulled it through so both threads were on the back side. A lot of you know this trick. I know you do, but some don't, so I'm going to keep repeating it. Now I have the threads, all the thread tails on the inside. And what I'll do is I'll just give these a little bit of a tug. Make sure that there's no peaking. I'll lop it off at about a half an inch away from the leather. See, this one's peaking right here. Let's see here. If I can get that through. Right here, this thread, because it's coming from this hole across the top of the leather into this hole around the back thread, and then goes back through the leather, and then comes back down through right here. But a little bit of slack got let through, and it started peeking through right here. So you want to get that to go away. Grab your final thread and give it a tug, and it will suck that little peak back into the hole. That should be about center of your leather of your work. Give it a little tug, and not only did that tighten it, but it got rid of that little peak. I like to leave them about half inch, 5/16, that kind of range in there. And then I melt them down. Turn my fan off so it doesn't blow the lighter out. I just melt them down. Runs it to the bottom, a little bit of fire, and then smash it with the side of your lighter. A little bit of fire, smash it. See it locks those in. Those aren't going to go anywhere. So I did this whole belt with a full bobbin. Let's pull the bobbin out and see how empty it is now. Take my little pick tweezers here, go into the little holes, pull it out. Let's see. Go through there. That's how much I have left. Focus, would you? Not a lot. That belt used up almost an entire bobbin of 138. So there you go. It is possible. This belt is, I think it's 45 inches long. So I did that distance twice, and that's how much bobbin I have left on a full bobbin. The smaller the thread, the more you can fit into the bobbin. I know that's something that you all probably already know, but I'm going to say it because there's a lot of people that are truly new to this. But on these belts, I like to give it a little bit of extra strength down there by the buckle. One of the ways I like to do it, come on, go in there, is, this is one I finished earlier. Once I get I like to have a little bit of strength right here, not for the thread to come out, but for twist in this direction. A twist like this, it just gives it a little bit more strength along the edges right here. So I'm going to go and do 2 more passes on both sides. Now, these extra passes through those holes is going to cause a tension problem, and this next one is going to make those a little loose on the top. It's not bad, it's just a little bit. And to compensate for that, I do turn up my tension on my machine about 1/4 of an inch, just because. And actually, this tensioner is actually maxed out at this moment, so we're good. That'll do it. Put that away. So to do that double, that extra 2 stitch lines on there, make sure my bobbins are loaded all the way back up correctly. Put the thread across the hole, close the gate, take this thread from your needle, a little bit more slack, hold on to the tail, run it 1 rotation, and pull, pulls the thread out from your bobbin hole. Now my machine is ready to go again. Straighten up my head right there. I'm going to, on the other one, I tried, it was the first time I tried it, I just wanted to see if it'd do it. I wanted to put an extra, say, 10, 12 stitches. Just another pass through 10 to 12 stitches. I tried starting in the center, working this way, going past that, and then working back to the center. I didn't really like doing it that way. It seemed like it was way more of a pain in the ass than it needed to be. So I'm going to start off like right about here. I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to come back. Instead of doing the zigzag there, I'm just going to go one direction and back and see how it works. Backwards, I'm going to do my first pass with the machine in reverse, essentially. I'm going to count back. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's go with 10 right there. Crap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That hole right there. Put the needle on the spot where I want it. Push it down to the leather and then up against the arm. Grab my two tails. I'm going to take the bottom one and pull it towards me, top one towards me. Put my foot down. And I'm going to start running. I'm going to hold onto those tails for a couple of stitches. 1, 2. Now I can let go of them. I'm comfortable with that. Okay, one more. Why not? 3. Now I'm going to run it all the way. Alright, remember I'm trying to miss the thread. See it? I wish I could get this thing. Like, I need a better camera setup. What happened there was when my needle came up, there's so much tension from the other thread going through the hole that it didn't take up the slack from the previous loop or the previous stitch. So I'm going to grab right here to the thread that goes from my needle bar down to my eyelet. I'm just going to give it a small little tug right there and it'll suck it up. Now when I did that, it didn't just take up tension from down here and it pulled thread back into the system, but it also pulled thread from the spool side of the system. So you're going to come up here, grab onto the spool side of your tensioner and give it just a small little tug to pull that stuff back into the tensioning position. And then continue. And the only reason that really happens is because of so much thread already going through that hole. Sometimes you can remedy that by getting this into the 9 o'clock spot where it's a little loose right here, and then going to 12 o'clock in a little bit of a snap. So you're going to just kind of, and that will suck that tension up too. But sometimes if you do that, it could break your thread right here at the eyelet. So you're kind of like, do I risk it? Do I not risk it? Or whatever. This time I risked it and it worked. So I'm going to plunge down through the next hole, get to that 9 o'clock position and snap it up to 12. See, it didn't work that time. It just depends on its mood. I'm going to grab this thread right here, give it a little tug. You can only really do this with the needle in the up position. If it's down through the leather, that's just not going to work. And then take up my slack on the front side of the tensioner here and move on to the next hole. And right there, my foot is up. I'm on the last stitch, so while my foot is up, turn my drum. Now I'm going to be facing towards myself. But also, I'm in my 6:30 point, my 6:30, 7 o'clock spot. I'm going to pull my tails through again. I'm going to pull it so that both my tails are hanging out the bottom. So it's a little loose. I can still remedy that. I can grab this tail right here and pull. And it sucks that looseness back out right there. There we go. Moving to the side of the thread. Moving a little slow. There we go. Now, I kind of don't want to, with these loose tails, I kind of don't want to send the needle through those same holes with the already loose tail. So I think I'm going to stop and right here, and I'm going to take it out and I'm going to cut those tails away. Lift that up. Come on, there we go. Lift my foot. Oh, yep. Sometimes if you lift your foot before you lift the needle out, it will suck it back in and it'll get stuck. When it gets stuck, just grab your wheel and just jiggle it back and forth, and with a little bit of tension pulling, and most of the time it'll pop right out. No big deal. So I did. So these holes right here all have 4 passes through them. Just gives a little bit of extra rigidity right here. I'm going to pull this other tail back to the back. All 4 of my tails are on the back side now. I'll get it over here. And then I'll cut these off at about 5/16 and burn them down. I'm going to check for the peaking, just like I did that last time. No peaking. Cut it down. Grab my handy dandy lighter and burn them down. It is really hot in here, guys. So that side of it is done. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I know I still have enough thread in the bobbin, but should I look and check? Is it smart to look and check? Now let's see what happens. I'm going to turn my drum facing away from me again. I'm going to find that spot. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Into that hole right there. And put the needle up against that hole and just kind of set it on it. I'm not forcing the needle through. Grab the bottom tail, grab the top tail, pull them towards me, put my foot down, not in an angry way, not getting mad, not setting rules, and start stitching and get a couple of done before I really let go of those tails. Looks like this side's going to behave better than the other side. Now, I'm at the furthest point. I see a little bit of looseness right there. I'm going to give this tail a tug, and that sucked it up. I'm going to go ahead and grab this bottom tail and pull on it, and then suck that top tail back through. There are tons of different ways to do that. There's a few people that actually get upset when people tell you to do it this way. Not really sure why. Find your own way of doing it, enjoy doing it, and ignore them. And here we go. So that tail's through. I'm gonna move it just a little bit further. Spin my drum around. See, I got a problem right there. There's way too much looseness right there. Make sure my foot is able to go down. And snap, popped it, filled it, took that tension right back out. I'm going to go ahead and send the needle through that thread to kind of force that looseness to go down into the stitch hole. And see that it really moved a lot right there, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to back it up. Get that needle where I want it, touch the leather, foot down, rotate. And this is the last one. Pull this down, lift the foot, pull it out. Make sure all 4 of my tails are on the back side. And then check for peaking, which I have some peaking right there. Well, it's not peaking. Somehow it's pinched, or it's stitched through the other one just a little bit right there. See, all 4. I'm gonna cut those off at about 5/16 to ½ an inch. Burn them down. Use the side of the lighter to push them down because you don't want to burn your precious little fingers. No! I overburnt it. I have to do an extra pass right there. Alright, here's an example of why you use fire sparingly and not hold it on there too long. Look. I don't know if you can see it, but right here, right there underneath where I burnt it down, I accidentally burnt that thread completely off. So now I'm not going to redo the whole damn belt. I'm going to run a stitch line across that just a couple times. Problem is, this big chunk of plastic that's there now, I got to break some of that off. The needle won't want to go through that. So let's see if I can crack some of it off with these tweezers. Nope. Prying it up with the thread snippers. There we go. There. Now to do this part, I'm just going to start at one spot and move across it and end it. I'm not going to do any back stitching. I'm only going to do about 7 stitches. Pull that through. Pull this one back. There we go. Put my foot down and go to town. Oh no. Lift it up. Press down into the hole with the needle. Put the foot back down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Call it good there. And voila. I am officially out of that bobbin. That is exactly how much bobbin I got out of that, doing that whole belt. 1 bobbin did that. That's pretty good. That was close. Pull the tails through. This time I'll try to do a better job. Ta-da. Ta-da. Look at that. I didn't burn any of that stitching right there. Just melted down the ends. And this belt is done. Now I'll throw it on the bench and I'll use my flattening hammer to kind of tap it into the leather a little bit more. But it looks good. It's done. 1 bobbin for this belt, except for these 2 inner lines right here. .138 thread, size 22 needle. Alright guys, I'm gonna go to bed. Good night.